of course, every time there's something you keep, first thing you do is to point finger at the opposition or at the ruling party. So that is not there in that time. That's why a truly Indian victory. So anyways, that is 71. But then the other thing also which one can think, and then you must be current with the emerging technology, emerging military and security technology.
Yes, sir. 71 was really a dark time, and sir, we'll read more about it.
No,
Another.
but then it had a very good outcome. I mean that strategic victory that we won has given us confidence.
Yes, sir, definitely.
So that is.
So another personal question. I am in defense aspirant. I am preparing for NDA, and
Oh,
this
great.
time, thank you, sir. And this time, finally, girls were allowed in the NDA. What's your opinion on the women in the NDA now?
Well, it should be done properly. I mean, people should be prepared. All sides should be prepared. Right, the NDA itself, the other cadets, the instructors, the staff, all the facilities, all should be prepared for that. And we must think of it. I mean, if you get mm, um, you train people for 3 years, 4 years, 4.5 years, from through NDA and through the three service academies, and then after the end of that, you don't allow them to go into combat arms, then it's a waste. Because although a lot of people join logistics and combat support, service support also, arms and branches from NDA after passing out from NDA, but it is meant to provide that leadership core, that leadership cadre, which will tenant the highest appointments, and your commanders are supposed to come from NDA. See, so then you must allow women to hold those appointments also. So you have to work it out. So, and in any case, this decision should have been taken by the executive, not by the judiciary. I find that judiciary is taking most of the decisions nowadays, when it should be the executive. So, because otherwise we can't reduce women to showpieces that Republic Day parade or other parades or this thing. You must give them adequate responsibilities and test them. That's that's my take.
That's I agree
It
with
might
it.
make life in India more bearable, but let's see. Yeah. But anyway, they keep you so busy that social life is it doesn't have a very high priority. But otherwise, you find that in NDA, the NDA, they have the end of term ball and the other socials and all. Parents in Pune are perfectly willing to let their daughters go and attend these socials, because they say it's the NDA, they'll be well taken care of. Hmm? They're in no danger.
Yes, sir. I'm really excited for the time if I am able to break through and get into the NDA. And it has been a
Hmm.
lifelong dream.
Yes, yes, yes. You must wish you all the best. I'm sure you'll get through. Uh,
We'll soon begin and we'll start.
Thank you, sir, for the pre-session. And
yeah, right, right.
now we'll, sir, formally like to welcome you. And
Thank you.
Saksar,
Thank you for
over to
having.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is time for a discussion panel on the topic of global threats and opportunities for India in 2030. Along with us, we have two eminent personalities: Mr. Mandeep Singh Bajwa, who is the military affairs columnist in Indian Express and ex-associate editor at Orbat.info, along with Mr. Snesh Philip Alex, who is the senior associate editor at The Print and ex-deputy editor of Strategic Affairs, who will be joining us soon. To continue this discussion panel, I would request my colleagues, Ansh and Sarthak, to come forward.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Sarthik Singh, and it's a
Good
great honor
afternoon.
to have
Good
you
afternoon
on.
to both of you.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Vansh Kapoor, and as Sarthik said, it's a tremendous opportunity for us to host you today.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me. I hope I'll be able to contribute something and provide some guidance to our young minds. I mean, you are the leaders, future workers, future strivers, future achievers of tomorrow. One must do all one can to guide you, to mentor you.
Yes, sir. How have you been lately? How are you?
Well, fine. Just getting, getting over this election campaign has ended yesterday, and tomorrow we have to vote.
Yes, sir. Great.
Sir, how was your time? How did the different waves of the pandemic affect your life, sir? We like to know about it.
When in March 2020, when lockdown was declared, lockdown put into effect, I really sat down and planned, and I did some of the pending projects which I had to study this, to study that, to read such books, and other things and all. I put those into effect, and I started this thing, and my thing was the same. I mean, every day at 9 o'clock, I used to be at my computer or in my office and would read, study, surf, make notes, write and thing, and then with a break for lunch, then again carry on till about 5 or 6 in the evening, and then of course the rest of the evening, spend in some sort of leisure activity at home, and then of course catching up with a lot of people and things and all. I tried my hand at something which I had done in my youth, in my school days and all, like sketching or painting, and that's how it passed. And I'm happy, some of the reading, writing, and academic projects which I had been putting off for a long time, I was able to put those into effect and do something about that. So I think went off well. But naturally, I would have loved to have been able to go out. I think everybody would have loved to do that. But then I suppose this couldn't be helped. हाँ जी. Okay. I think not getting your audio.
So, are you hear us now?
I can hear you now.
The Pakistan government just issued its Islamic bond at 7.95% interest rate, and it's safe to say that the country is heading towards economic slowdown. So, do you think this economic slowdown can create an opportunity for India to strengthen Indo-Pak relations?
Well, economic slowdown is is a mild term to describe. There is a complete disaster which they're looking at. I mean, Pakistan made all the wrong choices right from the beginning. I mean, whereas India, you know, we had the founding fathers of the nation. I mean, there were so many of them who were involved in, in setting up this great nation. In that period, 47 to 50, and later also, and they kept at it, kept on hammering out the constitution, drafting it, debating it, and made the right choices. And within two and say within less than 3 years, we were a republic, and after that, we have never looked back. And whereas Pakistan, got its first constitution in 1956, and the first time that elections based on universal democratic voting rights was in December 70. So, and then after that, then we find that Pakistan has always projected itself as a security state. Thinking of themselves as the successors to the conquerors, traditional conquerors of South Asia. The conquerors from Central Asia. Whereas India, you found that we talked about the glories of India. We talked about our economic might. We talked about what we're given to the world. I mean, that socio-cultural heritage and economic the things. I mean, it's not a coincidence that so many countries colonized India. The British, of course, was one. The French, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and India was such a prize. I mean, you'll remember Christopher Columbus discovered America while he was on a voyage to India. He was attempting to come to India, and he discovered America instead. And you find that all along the coast of Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa, there are a number of British colonies which they had carved out these small colonies and ports and all as way stations on their voyages to India. That is kind of importance India had, and we kept at it. And of course, many of our objectives, many of our goals were not met. But in the end, you find that we've still done substantially better. Whereas Pakistan has not, although we don't find that they went into economic liberalization before us, but yet they have not been able to catch up with us because they took all the wrong things, going in for using non-state actors to achieve political goals, fomenting terrorism. So I think. Now there should be a realization that we cannot keep on cannot develop or keep this adversary relationship with Pakistan in being for all time to come. At the end of the day, we must sit down and come to some sort of understanding. Otherwise, we'll be caught up in within South Asia all the time. There will be we will not be able to break out into the world. Why the world? I mean, break out into the rest of Asia also. Although China also has problems with all its neighbors, yet they are progressing. I mean, look at the kind of forays they made into economic forays made into Africa, made into the rest of Asia, the Belt and Road Initiative, the economic corridors, the Silk Route, other things and all. That's what we have to do. And we have to sit down with Pakistan and again, an economic understanding is the best way forward. I mean, there's so much which they can buy from us. The ready-made market for us for all our goods, and similarly, ready-made market for their goods. I mean, the Pakistan can contribute a lot if there is some sort of understanding, some sort of bending forward. We should take a few steps forward and meet them. So that's what we have to do. But as I said, Pakistan still thinks of itself as a national security state. I mean, the army controls everything. So within the army, there are elements who also realize this. But till such time as they're able to keep us off balance by using non-state actors, that will not be. But this economic disaster which they're staring in the face might change their minds. So we have to think in those on those lines. We have to take a few steps forward. We have to get them to understand. And yes, I underline this that an economic understanding is the best understanding of all. France and Germany fought so many wars, both in the 19th and the 20th century. I mean, the murderous hatred between both the countries. But once they started cooperating economically, now you have the phenomenon of a joint army formation, the Franco-German Corps, which is a vital force for stability and defense in Europe. So we got to work on those lines.
Definitely, so I also believe it's time to reconcile with our little brothers.
Absolutely. It may be unpopular, But we have to think on those lines. We can't keep fighting them all the time for
इनकी
what?
इनकी इनकी पिन थोड़ी है, ये
I mean,
स्पॉटलाइट पे है.
what are the points of issue? We'll be forever stuck in South Asia if we keep fighting with them.
हाँ नहीं,
And
अभी कैसे मीटिंग रखेंगे
as
हफ्ते
for
बाद
them,
की, उसकी भी तो प्रैक्टिस
they're looking at economic disaster.
So,
Yes, sir. So, sir, it's been 1 year since the fourth Myanmar coup, and India till now has taken a neutral stance. So, do you think that in the near future, India will change its stance?
We were lucky. As I said, our founding fathers uh, put us on the right track. They worked out a constitution. I mean, the Constituent Assembly met nearly every day in between 47 and 49. And some of the best brains in India, debated, drafted and then debated the provisions of our constitution. And within 2 years of us becoming a republic, we held the largest ever elections in the world at that time, which have only become bigger now. So, I think that is the biggest contribution, biggest gift given to us by our founding fathers. I mean, there's so many of them: Nehru, Patel, Azad, Mathai, Baldev Singh, and Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. There's so many of them, and they all contributed. And democracy, the noise and chaos of democracy has kept us stable. Whereas this did not happen in the other countries of South Asia. Pakistan, I want to talk to you about. You see, Sri Lanka also faced problems. Bangladesh, they've had so many coups. They had so much instability. Now there is a measure of stability and look at the economic parameters. I mean, you know it better than me. They're doing very well on economic parameters. They're doing better than India and Pakistan both. And then instability again in Nepal. Myanmar is a chronic case of instability because they didn't have proper leaders, they didn't have that proper framework, and those leaders did not have the right frame of mind, the correct intentions, which we were lucky in that sense that we got such leaders and the public also. I mean, the media, the other saying the thinkers, the universities, academics, and everybody made sure that we remained on that straight and narrow path of democracy and forward thinking. So Myanmar is now becoming an international basket case. But I don't think there's any question of us intervening. We have to try and help them in whatever way we can. But there are problems. I mean, I can foresee in the future that they may start, aiding the separatists and other insurgencies in the northeast. In the past, they have done. I mean, not passively, not active help, but allowing them to, establish camps and carry out their training there. We've seen that we carried out raids into Myanmar way back in 2015, was it, or 16? And before that, also there were raids. I mean, they have not given all that much result, but we have been going in and and then you remember the Mizo National Army after the 71 war, they moved from East Pakistan into Myanmar, and they came out only in '86 when the Mizoram Accord was signed. So we have to work with Myanmar, but there again we have to find economic issues. I think we would do well to try and get Myanmar to give us a land route from the Bay of Bengal to Mizoram. I mean that connectivity to the northeast from there, and then through a network of highways connect up the northeast. Let's invest heavily in infrastructure, roads, bridges, railways, airports, and integrate the northeast fully, emotionally and economically with India. So, in that sense, Myanmar can play a big role. So, let's have some more cooperation with Myanmar. I mean, it's a very important country for us strategically, and we have to work on that. Um, it has been suggested that we should learn to work with dictatorships also. Well, that's true to some extent. Of course, democracy will always, you saw the Americans, they pay. I won't say they pay lip service to democracy. They, tout democracy as the best system in the world, but they work with dictatorships all the time. I mean, in Vietnam, with in Pakistan, with Iran, and so many other countries, they have worked with all the dictatorships. So we have to also change our mindset slightly. Let's see. You see? So, yeah, I mean, you can't interfere in another country. That is the last thing we should do. And certainly, we should never try to export our ideology to other countries. It's very, very dangerous. But yes, we should work with all these countries, and economics is the key.
Sir, particularly because Myanmar is our neighbor, and for like war against China, it's very important for India to maintain like very good relationship with Myanmar. So that's why, I mean, uh, I said that it's
No, no,
very
you're
important for
absolutely
India.
right. You're absolutely right. The Chinese can cut through Myanmar and attack in the northeast at any time. I mean,
Yes, sir.
on the border with Tibet, uh, there are certain high passes and all which, if you control those, and an invading army cannot make much progress. But we saw in World War II, the Japanese were able to come to the gates of India. Battles of Kohima and Imphal, drove them back. But they were able to penetrate through the jungle and come right into Nagaland and Manipur. So we have to be careful about that. Although Chinese don't have very many sort of stakes here, they would rather keep us off balance by laying claim to Arunachal Pradesh, or they have tremendous stakes in Aksai chain because of the communications which connect Tibet with Xinjiang and thing. But we still have to take care of that. Hmm.
Yes, sir. True.
So the White House just issued a statement calling all its citizens back from Ukraine. Last week, Japan called all its citizens back from Ukraine, and the situation is heating up. What stance do you think India would take if Ukraine was really to invade?
Well, I mean, see, Russia is in an expansionist mood, and that's one way that Putin wants to keep himself in power. Plus, also, capture the tools of economic growth. I mean, you find that Russia, apart from say heavy engineering, weapons, and oil and gas, they have nothing much to offer. So they'd like to capture more markets, and build themselves up, and therefore, everybody wants to be on top. So that is something which we cannot accept. But then we've always had very good relations with Russia. I mean, after the 62 war, none of the Western nations was prepared to sell us weapons. And after the 65 war, particularly, they declared an embargo on weapons supplied to India. And in 71, the US even sent in their 7th Fleet into the Bay of Bengal to put pressure on India. So the Russians stood with us. I mean, the 7th Fleet turned back because the Russians also deployed their submarines and provided us with satellite imagery of the progress of the 7th Fleet. So Russia has been an all-weather friend to us. So we have to, walk the tightrope on this. We can't allow Ukraine to be overwhelmed. And you find that NATO doesn't have the kind of strength although the Russian armed forces are, considerably weaker than what the Soviet military was. But even then, they're more than a match for NATO. And so it's a flashpoint which has some very dangerous ramifications if not resolved. But let's see what shape the compromise takes. So that's the thing. But we have to walk the tightrope on that. So we can't be seen as being part of aggression, because then then how do we deal with Chinese if we are supporting or tacitly sort of acquiescing to aggression by the Russians? How do we get the world to support us against the Chinese? So it's a very difficult situation.
Definitely, sir, we are walking a really tight rope, and I hope that India comes out is able to walk through the waters and sail through the waters.
So, sir, recently reports came out that India has sent medical assistance to Afghanistan. So, do you think that India is slowly and gradually accepting the Taliban-led state?
Well, we have to. We have no choice. They tried everything. Look at the trillions of dollars the Americans spent in Afghanistan. Troops, they're saying that in a worldwide coalition, and they're saying that yet they couldn't stop the technologically inferior Taliban from defeating them. So we have to do something about that, because for one thing, the Taliban can easily send their cadres to come and intervene in Kashmir. I mean, they start infiltrating in, and we will have problem on our hands. And any hopes of any rapprochement with Pakistan will be doomed if the Taliban come in. Of course, they will. If they come in, it'll be with the instigation and with the express consent or intention of the Pakistanis. But then after that, then we can bid goodbye to any solution on Kashmir or anything which smacks of a agreement with Pakistan. So that is there. I mean, they've shown that they can take tremendous casualties, yet still without. I mean, the Afghan people have my admiration, and we've seen that earlier also. They've taken on the British, the Russians, and the same. So there again, it's a very difficult situation. But we must also put some iron into our resolve also. I mean, we can't just keep on giving aid or whatever or being soft enough. We must build up our own strength and be able to. I mean, a situation occurs again where these people start taking our assets there, or like the Kandahar, the hijacking, 814 hijacking. Then we should be able to retaliate also. Unfortunately, we have no capability, nor are we interested. Do we seem to be interested in building up that capability?
Yes, sir. Sir, do you think that the Taliban-led government will collapse just like they did previously?
Well, they collapsed because of outside intervention. Because the American-led coalition started attacking them, and they even sent in troops from the ground. But there could be a time. I mean, people of Afghanistan might get fed up. I mean, after all, Taliban are not known to be particularly pleasant people to be ruled by. So there comes the time when everybody, gets tired of all this, and they might just rise up. You've seen that it happening everywhere. I mean, the Russian Revolution, the Iranian Revolution. I mean, the classic case in India, where the entire nation stood up and as one and booted the British out. So there could be a time. I think it could happen. Right now, there are isolated protests, but they've kept them isolated, and the Taliban have broken up the protests. But it could require different shape. So let's see.
Yes, sir. I feel that the survival of the Taliban-led state would definitely depend on the international support they get, basically.
Yeah, I think the world is not tired of Afghanistan. They say, "What do you do?" They're not willing. The Afghan people are not willing to fight for their country. I mean, look at the way the Afghan National Army collapsed. They just they're withered away within a space of a few weeks. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. We agree with what you say.
So there have been many minor skirmishes with China in the past 2 years. And sir, a popular theory known as the chicken egg plan of invasion has been gaining traction. How do you think Indian Army and Air Force and Navy would try to prevent the situation if it was to arise?
No, you're talking about the Siliguri corridor.
Yes, sir, the Siliguri corridor to separate the Northeast.
There are certain geographical areas where we are vulnerable. But of course, one can, use proper defenses. And I must tell you this, the Himalayan shield put into place in 63, 64 by Nehru, Chavan and Chaudhary, the army chief, was not breached till 2020 when the Chinese took over this area in Aksai Chin. So, and then in 2012, there was a rethink, and a new philosophy came to the fore, that of aggressive defense. And we started raising the Mountain Strike Corps, the first of the two planned Mountain Strike Corps. And that, provoked a rethink amongst the Chinese. And they, we found that the provocations and the border clashes ceased for a while. So a purely defensive strategy can never work. You have to be able to launch an offensive. You have to be able to make the enemy feel the heat of your weapons, of your strategy also. So this is what we did against Pakistan. In 65, they sent in infiltrators and guerrillas into Kashmir to conquer Kashmir. But we opened an offensive, a new front against them in Punjab. We launched an offensive against Lahore and Sialkot. And they were taken by surprise. And that saved Kashmir. In 71 again, we launched an offensive into East Pakistan. And so we must be able to take the offensive. Otherwise, purely defense strategy can never work. You must be able to project your offensive power against the enemy also, which is what the military commanders and think did, were able to persuade the government into implementing. Sadly, that is no longer seems to be the case. Our strategy now is not only defensive, but it's a strategy of denial. We deny that any aggressions or any aggressions are taking place, or that there has been any aggression. That will never work. And in the meanwhile, they're in possession of our land. So we must change our ways. We can't remain on the defensive all the time. It's always better to be on the offensive.
Yes, sir. Maybe it's time for that we take offensive stand.
Yes, yes.
Sir, how, according to you, being a part of Quad alongside USA, Japan, and Australia will benefit India?
Well, all these four countries, they have shared interests, and they perceive a threat from China, particularly to their economic interests in the Indo-Pacific region. So, for them to work together is natural. And China is such a huge country and with a huge military and immense resources. So you have to, and they pose a severe threat to not just the four countries of the Quad, but to all the other countries in the Asia Pacific region. So it's natural for these countries to work together, and you find that Japan economically strong but militarily weak. Australia is a small country population-wise and with a small military. And the America is, of course, the most powerful country on earth. And India is a rising power, a rising regional power. So we work together. We can, put forward some checks and balances on the Chinese and contain them to some extent.
Yes, sir. Being a part of Quad will definitely help India.
Yeah.
So in the recent years, the Quad has dominated global affairs for decades now. But in the recent years, China has been moving more and more autonomously. What, according to you is the future of Security Council?
You're talking about the UN Security Council?
Yes, sir, the UN Security Council.
Yeah. Well, the UN is pretty toothless now. It's mainly a forum for debates. I mean, nobody really takes much notice of the UN. And I think there are other initiatives like the WHO and UNDP and others are, laudable initiatives, and we should continue to work on that. But as a forum for firefighting or providing solutions to crisis or averting wars or conflicts, UN has proved singularly inept. They just can't think. I mean, okay, in Korea they fought it out. In Congo also they fought it out. Other places, even now, they have deployed troops, to act as a buffer, to act as observers, and for various other, various other stabilization forces. But beyond that, nothing. I mean, the major conflicts they just can't prevent. So I don't advocate the winding up of the UN in any way. But we must realize that it has its limitations, and beyond a point, they can't achieve much.
So, do you believe that there is a scope of a parallel organization forming up to counter the UN? Because India, how it seems, may never break in the Security Council. What's your view, sir?
No, a parallel organization vis-a-vis the UN, you mean?
No, sir. The Security Council, world dominance.
No, can you ask the question again?
Yes, sir. So the Security Council has not let India to everything. Do you think, sir, there is a scope that a more as the years go forward and the power of the Security Council declines? Do you think maybe India can have a shining moment and form a strong something like Quad or maybe stronger?
Well, since the Security Council has shown its weakness, other organizations have come up. NATO is one, which has now been around for over 70 years. And Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe also is there. Then, the EU, SARC, and the African Union, Economic Organization of West African States, the Organization of African Unity, and then what's that organization of the North and South American states called? the American, nay, what's it called? Uh, anyway, whatever you understand what I mean. So they're working together and they have achieved some these things. I mean, ECOWAS, the Economic Organization of West African States, has been deploying troops at various flashpoints, and that could be the way forward because the geographical entities have shared interests, much greater shared interests than a huge worldwide organization like the UN. So they could, sort of do some crisis fighting, resolve crisis, fight these flash fires and all. So that could be the way forward. Yeah, I would go with that.
Yes, so I also hope that India is able to have a strong presence in the near future in the international stage.
Yes, so sir, I read somewhere that almost 30,000 websites are hacked in India on daily basis. So, what do you think about the cyber security infrastructure of India?
Well, frankly, there's not much. I mean, first, the thing is to have a foolproof security, the thing, for which, some political will and some, there has to be some political will and a shedding of bureaucratic lethargy. And then building on that, there has to be an offensive component also that we can hit out at the enemy and disable their, their economic and their command systems in the event of any conflict. So there is a very good case for service, fourth defense service to be set up. To handle cyber operations, cyber intelligence, cyber defense, and so once again there has to be some political will to do that. At the moment, we have there's not much awareness of the immense threat that we face from cyber operations, both through non-state actors and through enemy countries.
Yes, sir, India definitely needs to improve the cybersecurity infrastructure.
Now, sir, we are moving ahead with questions from the audience.
Okay.
So, Shubham Bansal asks that, sir, as the OPEC has dominated the crude oil market for years now, and as the world is moving towards a greener way, how do you think their relevance will change in the international stage?
Well, I mean, the fossil fuels and all, there's a greater, movement towards non-traditional fuels and cleaner, greener energy, as you said. And we made some strides to that. We need to make greater strides. And, OPEC can, strangle, they got a stranglehold over the world. I mean, we saw in 73, in the Arab-Israeli war, how OPEC sort of virtually blackmailed the world. And that brought about the economic crisis, which in turn led to mass agitations in India and a lot of unrest, a lot of dissatisfaction, ultimately resulting in the emergency. So we have also got to keep on, exploring alternate energy sources and also looking for music, and then achieving greater influence amongst the existing petroleum producing countries in the Gulf and others in South America. South America is one area where we have virtually no influence. We have made no attempt to try and build up some influence there. So that's what I mean. We just can't depend on soft power alone. We've got to be able to have some sort of economic foothold in South America and other things. In the Gulf, of course, we got a large number of our expatriates working there, and there are saying, but progress there is slow. So let's see.
Definitely, sir. A more corporate relation with South America is must if the OPEC was to able to counter
Yes, Venezuela,
Venezuela, sir.
major petroleum producing country.
Yes, sir. So, sir, before we like end up the session, most of our audience are in their 20s and they will be the ones shaping the India of 2030. So, what will be that one piece of advice from you to all of us?
Well, I would say that they acquire specialization in something. Sounds fair, in which they can specialize, in which they do intense study and practice all those theories. And communication skills. Communication skills are woefully lacking in this country now. I mean, we've seen the deterioration in communication skills, even over the past few decades, and those are going to be very important. I mean, they're still very important now. They're going to get more and more important. So specialization and this thing, and then believe in the national ideology, which was enshrined in the constitution. I mean, we can't just now suddenly change the national ideology. For what purpose? I mean, we made progress now because of our national ideology and